lazy when I'm speaking, I'm lazy when I walk, I'm lazy when I'm dancing, and I'm lazy when I talk.
All right, today we're going to talk about houses. And we'll check with an inspector what kind of houses they're actually selling us, and also with lenders for what amounts all this is happening. The main thing is that people straight up call it a scam, so they're not ashamed to say what they think. This topic is really close to me.
So everyone knows that I'm not a fan of volume builders, and we happen to actually be tearing a volume builder house down in Officer. We're not tearing it right down, but we're doing some works due to a fire. So let's have a look at some of the workmanship that is going on here. Let's start with lintel. Not checked into studs either side. Non-low bearing wall, no ribbon plate. And if I just zoom in up there a little bit, you can see wedges under a truss, turning a non-load bearing wall into a load bearing wall.
Okay, let's look at how poorly everything is done. I just have no words. The load bearing wall is just incredibly poorly made. This could actually be harmful to human health. Just imagine if this whole structure collapses. And that, friends, is a human life. So we understand that we're seeing a case that could be a lawsuit. And the developer built this house quickly. I mean, he wanted to do it faster to get the money, but he didn't think about that. He didn't think about how to actually ensure people's safety and do a quality job. He wanted to do it quickly and save money for himself.
Now let's check this out. Now up in here, you might not be able to see it, is where the central heating unit is. This wall here, you can see the gap at this end between the truss and the wall, and have a look at this end here. Now the weight of the central heating unit has actually bowed this truss. If we whack a 2 metre level across there, the gap at the end is about 30mm drop in that truss to that side. The massive bow down across that area. Check out the step here from the bulkhead and the stud. Pretty sure that's not on the plan. Just really average workmanship. Things like these noggins. Check out this brace. No tension to that bad boy. If you peek behind there, you'll see I wasn't even nailed. Just more average workmanship. Look at the step there, and if we swing to the other side, how far that's sticking out. It's alright, just plaster over it. I should have got a photo earlier, but the vanity was here. You can see the line across here. That was where the tile underlay was nailed. There was no tile underlay, no waterproof under the vanity. Waterproofing not done properly. Let's just zoom in on the top of these studs here. Hopefully it'll zoom in. Oh, gap. Gap. Oh, that one's not bad. Gap. Gap.
All I can see is a bunch of cracks, a bunch of gaps, these nails sticking out in weird ways, and many structural errors. I'm actually curious how the inspector even approved this house. It's just some kind of miracle. But you have to understand that people are supposed to live here. And how are they supposed to live in a house like this when it's just falling apart with damaged walls and crooked corners everywhere? It's some kind of absurdity. I think it shouldn't be like this at all. But understand that in the end, the person who remains blamed is that person who just entered this house. They'll feel guilty, like they did something wrong, but they did everything right. It's just that the developer treated them so poorly.
Just check out how this is connected to the wall. Pretty sure that's doing bugger all. It's just terrible workmanship. Like, no, I don't think I've seen an L bracket that's nailed off properly. This house is 3 years old. Like, it's just poor workmanship, poor quality. This is what you get when you get a volume builder house. Thankfully, these guys have gone ass up. I actually forgot to show you. Hold on, let's just turn around for the... Look at that. Magnificent bit of chippy work. Seriously, stop spending your money, your hard-earned money, with muppets like these guys.
Look, there's no waterproofing in many places. There's a bunch of cracks here. I mean, it feels like this house is unfinished. I'm looking at it, and it seems like it was just built. Someone watched a YouTube video on how to build a house and was learning on this house at the same time. It's just a mess. Note that often such houses are handed over, people pay 300 to 400,000. And imagine that later the developer just declares themselves bankrupt. And as a result, the person can't do anything and is left alone with such a problem.
I'm not sure who needs to hear this, but if you're buying a new construction home, you need to know these things. If you don't know me, I'm Theone the lender. I've been a lender for 9 years now. Let's get into it. I had like 7 buyer consults this week of people who were under contract with a new construction home. And usually these new construction builders have their own in-house lenders. And in order for you to get the $10,000 or whatever it is of credit, you have to use these in-house lenders. But the problem is these in-house lenders are usually shitty lenders. And I mean, that's because they don't really need to be good lenders because they just know that they're going to get business from the builder who's building the community.
Look at the situation. You took a house from a developer, and the developer already has their own lender, who accordingly will be in on the same thing as your developer. He wants to cheat you. They come up with all sorts of manipulations to make this purchase seem profitable to you and to deal with you faster. Because they already have a work plan, and they also have many people who are already waiting for houses and apartments from them. In other words, they won't pay much attention to you. Their goal is to make money as quickly as possible and move on.
So, yes, they'll give you the $10,000, but 1, usually it's caked into the price that you pay for the home, and 2, the service lacks big time because they're really not looking for repeat business, so they don't care about the service and your experience buying that house, whether it's your first time buying or your second time buying. So when you are going to buy a new construction home, you need to know a couple of things. One is that if you're going to accept the $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 of closing cost assistance or the awesome interest rate or whatever it is, then you need to know that usually that lender is not going to be available to answer your questions, and they might not do a good job and will just give you a runaround for a lot of things that you do ask. And unfortunately, they don't really care about reviews so much because if you're not happy and you want to get out of that house, well then great, they keep your deposit and then someone else is going to want that house because that's just low supply, high demand right now. The other thing to note is that new construction homes usually take longer to appreciate because they're new construction and the builder sets the price of them. So unless you are planning to live in that house for at least 5 to 8 years.
Seriously? Planning to live there for 5 to 8 years? Just imagine what could change in your life in 5 to 8 years. For example, you might change jobs, you might have children, or your other life plans might change entirely. So you'll be forced, for instance, to sell your house, but for much less money. And this is exactly where you can fall into a trap.
You're not going to really see a return on your investment unless you stay that long. So I suggest that if you're a first-time home buyer just trying to get into real estate, new construction might not be the best route to go because you might not see that return on investment from the appreciation of the home. If you try to sell within 2 or 3 years, you maybe will get back what you paid for it up front. Now, I'm not saying that this is every single new construction home and their lenders. I know people that have had a great experience, but I'm going to say that like 80% of people I talk to, including people I personally know who are buying a new construction home, have a terrible experience with the lender. And I just don't think people are prepped enough when they go into buying these homes because they think it's amazing that they're getting this new build home and they sacrifice the service and they just don't know up front. But that's it. Just wanted to make everybody aware because I've had so many conversations recently about the service and the lack of communication from these lenders. So again, it's not everybody, but I figured I'd share and maybe this would help one person.
All right, this is going to be a controversial take, but I think new build properties are a scam.
This really looks like a scam. Look, you're paying both the mortgage and rent in a single payment. Plus, you have to pay utilities, ground rent, and all those other extra costs. And when you want to buy out a portion of your home, they want to sell it to you at an even higher rate. It seems like a scam to me. It's like running on a treadmill and thinking you're moving forward. Well, that's nonsense.
New build properties are often touted under shared ownership or buying schemes that are made to look like they're helping you, but actually they're screwing you over. Let's take shared ownership, for example. With shared ownership, you buy a percentage of the house and you rent the remaining percentage. You're then able to staircase up and acquire more equity in the house or the flat. The problem is, as you save more money or your salary increases over the years and you try to acquire more equity, it's done at market rate. So if you want to buy another 20% or 25% of that property, it will be at the market rate as to when you acquire that next staircase up or that percentage. With house prices continually rising, you're basically always playing catch up. Not only that, but you're paying a mortgage on a portion of the house, you're renting a portion of the house, and if you live in a flat or an apartment, you're also paying ground rent and service charges as well, which can cripple you. So that's like 4 different payments. But that's not even the biggest reason. The reason why I call new build properties a scam is because essentially you are the developer's exit. On average, new build properties will lose 10% in value within the first few years. And if you think about it, a lot of these developers act like they're doing you a favor, act like they're providing homes for families. But what you are, in reality, is that developer's exit.
Look, it's true. You're just an exit strategy for this developer. And that's it. Because he just buys land and builds on the plots. And he hides all this under the guise of a great deal on buying a home. As soon as you put your money in, the developer immediately stops caring about your problems. Well, you can see the situation for yourself, how high quality the renovation is there. Well, you know what I mean. And then you're left all alone with your problem. Oh, it's terrible. Their schemes don't just disappoint me, they just make me angry.
A lot of the new build properties are built with shoddy materials, it's poor workmanship, and the developers have the councils in their back pocket. So whilst it seems all good and well, and it looks like one of the only opportunities that a lot of people are going to have to get on the housing market, if you can afford not to go for one of these new build schemes, it is advisable to not do it. I think the reason that they advertise so much as an easy route to get into the housing market, especially if you're a single person, is the fact that they are just a developer's exit. They're trying to paint this amazing rosy picture for you to get you in these 1 beds, these 2 beds that are overpriced because they want to exit. They've spent a bunch of money developing this land. They've spent a bunch of money on labor and materials, and they want their money back to throw into the next project so they can con the next set of people. So be aware of new builds.
I feel like this doesn't get spoken about enough, but it's new construction homes, okay? They are trash, bro, and these builders consistently keep building them just to be trash. They know what they're doing. They know there's all these faults. They know they're going to be screwing the home buyers, but they get away with it.
Look, why is it that developers always seem to get away with it? For example, if there's flooding or a brick falls, the inspector who approved the housing immediately starts changing the warranty, saying it's not covered. Friends, what is actually covered by the warranty then? The fact that the developer profited from you and took your money? And worst of all, no one will go to jail for this. No one will be punished.
And then when there's the inspectors that get hired to come through to do the job, they do their job correctly and good. They're like, hey, you can't sell this house until this stuff gets passed. Well, then they get that person, they get rid of them. Now they're like, they've got their own like in-house inspectors that are passing these houses that should never pass off, right? They're selling them to people. Some of these people are first-time home buyers, but regardless, they get into the home and like the homes are flooding. If you have not seen some of these TikToks, bro, like the homes are flooding, shit's just falling apart. Then they get on the phone like, hey, this is not under warranty, or this is under warranty, but you know, they don't come out and fix it and stuff like that. It's just crazy to me how it's like nobody's getting in trouble for this shit. Every time I see this shit, I'm like, nope, I would never buy a new construction home. You're talking about $1 million homes and shit like that are just complete trash. You touch the brick, it falls off.
If you buy a house and you find out that there's mold or cracks in the walls after closing, can you sue the sellers? This can be easily answered by talking about the 3 different types of defects. We have latent defects, material latent defects, and patent defects. Now for the purpose of this video and simplicity's sake, we're only going to talk about latent and patent. So patent defects are anything like cracks in the walls, loose floorboards, things that you can reasonably discover if you are a prospective buyer walking through the house for the first time. These do not need to be disclosed. So if after closing you find a crack in the wall but it's not structural, then you're out of luck. Latent defects, on the other hand, are hidden defects that you wouldn't be able to reasonably spot on a walkthrough. Things like mold, asbestos. These legally need to be disclosed by the seller to their agent, and the agent has an obligation to disclose it to any prospective buyers and their agents. However, if the seller is not aware that they have asbestos, let's say, there isn't grounds for a lawsuit because they never knew that it was there, so they didn't have anything to disclose. But that would be a whole separate legal battle, so come back for part 2.
Your home warranty does not want to cover something. Here's what you're going to do. You are going to send them your inspection that shows that the item was working when you bought the property. Believe it or not, this actually works almost 100% of the time. If that doesn't work, call your real estate agent. We order a lot of them, and so we will go to bat on your behalf. A lot of times this does work. Sometimes it doesn't, but that's how all things are, right? Questions? Ask me. Follow for more tips from your real estate bestie.
Back on a new home today, and let's look at some vinyl siding issues. We're looking at this house right here. That's one, and there's many more. A couple more behind my head there, but let's have a look. Now, this siding has buckled and become disconnected in numerous places on this one wall. Above the window, below the window, 2 more on the front side, 1 more below this window. That's a lot of issues on one big wall of vinyl. Now that's not common. We're gonna get around the rest of the home, see what it looks like, but that whole wall, more than likely, is gonna have to come off and be redone. There's also some signs on that wall of some heavy moisture buildup inside the walls. A lot of dripping along this door right here. So something with the air barrier. Not going well. As we get to the back of the home, there's more. More and more of this as we work our way around. Having issues. Lots of moisture getting in behind it as well. And this corner right here, see all this melted siding? You know what caused that? That door. That's just reflection off that door. Melted that vinyl. Crazy. All of this is just another reason to have a third-party inspection done in your new home.
What can I say? In conclusion, everyone wanted to have a nice house where everything was fine with completely perfect renovations. People saved up for years for that, maybe even borrowed money. But in the end, we get what we get. We get dishonest inspectors and developers. As a result, we'd simply lose our money. To avoid this kind of thing, you need to follow certain rules. For example, you need an independent inspector and an independent lender who will do everything honestly and won't be dependent on the builder. But friends, if your gut feeling tells you that something is wrong, then maybe it's telling you that for a reason. Sometimes it's worth listening to yourself.